little bit closer. All right, thank everybody for coming. I want to welcome Deputy Mayor of Public Safety Jerry Sneed, Chief Surpass, U.S. Attorney Jim Letten, DA Leon Cannizzaro, Sheriff Guzman, Todd Cox, who's with the FBI, Jimmy Fox, who's with the DEA, Ginny May, who is our U.S. Marshal, Constance Hester, who is with Alcohol, Tobacco, and Fire, Ronnie Johns, who is with the State Police, Frank Palestino, who is with Probation and Parole, Charles West, who is with our Group Violence Reduction Strategy. Number one priority in the city of New Orleans remains murder reduction. As I have said since the day that I took office, there is too much death on the streets of New Orleans. In May of this year, we announced a comprehensive plan that is called NOLA for Life, that is designed to engage the entire community into creating a city of peace rather than a city of too much death. We have 5 pillars that are attached to this specific initiative. The first is pretty simple and direct, which is you have to stop the shooting. The second is that we know and we understand that we have to invest in prevention. The third is we have to promote jobs and opportunity. The fourth is to continue to improve the police department. And the fifth is to get the community involved from top to bottom to rebuild our neighborhoods. It's a comprehensive effort that has a lot of different pieces to it. But one of the key initiatives for this NOLA for Life plan is what we call the Group Violence Reduction Strategy. It was developed by renowned criminologist Professor David Kennedy, who helped initiate this across the country, most particularly in Boston, New York, and in Chicago. The idea is simple. We have a small group of individuals in this city who are in gangs and who are in loosely affiliated groups that are committing the majority of shootings and murders. We have identified about 600 individuals in the city. We think they belong to loosely 39 groups and or gangs. 30 of them are very active. We know who they are and we know where they are. And the message to these violent groups is direct and it's consistent. You have a choice. You can get in line, you can flip your script, you can turn your life around, or you can face the consequences, because this city will be safe. There are new rules for engagement in the city of New Orleans right now for those who are preying on each other and on other people. So today we are announcing the creation of an entity called the Multi-Agency Gang Unit. The key component is to make sure that the group violence reduction strategy that we put in place is effective and that there are consequences. This Multi-Agency Gang Unit is going to be led by the New Orleans Police Department, which has jurisdiction across the city. As you can see from the people standing around me, there is active and intense collaboration between federal, state, and local agencies, all of whom are completely and totally committed to effective organization and communication between and amongst them. We have one clear mission, and one only, and that's to reduce homicide in the city of New Orleans. We're going to go after groups and gangs and the members of them. We're going to gather evidence and intelligence. We're going to arrest and we're going to prosecute at all levels and across federal, state, and local jurisdictions. We are going to hold the people who commit violent acts and murder in the city of New Orleans accountable. Gone are the days where we're not going to be coordinated, or we're not communicating, or we're not talking to each other, or we're not going to be there when these activities occur or soon thereafter. This unit is one of the many tactics to coordinate attention on the most violent groups. So we're sending a very clear message. The violence is going to stop, or there are going to be consequences for bad decisions. On the other hand, there will be rewards for good decisions. We will deliver the promises that you hear today. And so I want to thank everybody for coming, and I'm going to have a number of people come up and talk and give you a perspective of what their role in this is going to be. So please help me welcome Chief Ronald Surpass, who's the superintendent of NOPD. Chief.
Well, thank you, Mr. Mayor. What we're looking for here is those complex, well-designed, well-executed, long-term investigations that will look to seek long-term prison sentences for the most dangerous among us. The collaboration that we have with all of our partners, federal partners, FBI, ATF, DEA, federal probation, state partners, state probation, local partners, the sheriff's office, with Sheriff Guzman's office, District Attorney Cannizzaro's office, and most importantly, the men and women I'm so proud to lead of the New Orleans Police Department. For the last many months, we've been taking much evidence inside of our city to determine the next best steps. I have complete confidence in Commander Dean, Lieutenant Lampard, Lieutenant Mornay, and Lieutenant Williams, who, through their organizational units, will oversee the gang, the multi-agency gang unit, tying that and linking that into our intelligence systems on a day-to-day basis, tying that and linking that into the narcotics investigations and distribution networks that we confront throughout our neighborhoods and communities, tying that into Lieutenant Marchese and the homicide unit. Make no mistake about it, I have complete confidence in the men and women of this police department to carry this ball over the line with the entire team that we have with us. We feel that it is an honor to lead this effort. We take that incredibly serious. Long investigations, long prison sentences for the most dangerous among us so that they will not have a place to walk among the people of New Orleans. With that, I'd like to ask U.S. Attorney Jim Letten to come up.
Thank you, Chief. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It is so exciting for me to be here today for this announcement. Mr. Mayor, Chief, and all of our partners, thank you for doing this. Thank you for taking this leadership role in putting this unit together. This is not an initiative. It's not a project. We are talking about a unit comprised of men and women from all of these agencies you see here working together seamlessly, every day. Prosecutors, investigators, police, agents, probation, parole, you name it, in order to share real-time information and intelligence and use that to identify, apprehend, imprison, and take off the streets dangerous groups. We've already got enormous cooperation between each other, but this mechanism brings it home, and there is no daylight between any of these organizations. The DA, Leon Cannizzaro, has built a capacity in that office that he's demonstrated can, and does take out dangerous gangs. They're working on racketeer organization cases just as we have in the federal system. We are multiplying our ability to do this. And the bad guys out there need to understand that as efficient as this system has been, as aggressive as it's been, it is going to get exponentially better. I'm proud to be part of it. And so now I get to turn you over to the District Attorney, Leon Cannizzaro. Thank you.
Thank you, Jimmy. And like Jim just said, I too would like to thank the mayor for taking the leadership role in this venture. You know, ladies and gentlemen, for the longest period of time, we have seen in the past where the federal and the local and the state agencies have worked together to go out and combat crime. But what we're seeing in this instance, which is so different from what we have seen in the past, is in the past, from my perspective as a district attorney, I have waited until a case was brought to me by the police department or maybe by a federal agency, and then we've taken that case and prosecuted it. This sort of venture is different in that we're involved with the law enforcement agencies at ground zero when they are making the case, when they are gathering the intelligence. We sort of have some input into the direction of the investigation with an eye to prosecution of the people that are arrested in the criminal district court. I think this is novel for us in New Orleans. It's something I have never seen before from the district attorney's perspective, from a state, from the local prosecutor. You see all the people standing behind us. This is a tremendous amount of, as I said, you look at the federal agents, look at the state agents, you have everyone here. We're serious about this. The only message we can send to the violent offender in Orleans Parish is stop or we're coming after you. And we're going to put you away for as long as the law allows. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, again for the leadership in this role.
Good. Thank you, Mayor. At the Sheriff's Office, our #1 mission is public safety. And echoing what the DA and the U.S. Attorney said, this is about a seamless, real-time cooperation. So we're going to be working together in each other's offices. working together as a unit, making cases as they come together, and not waiting for something to come to each other. So this is really important, Mayor. I think this is a big step forward. Glad to be a part of it.
Jenny Makers, a U.S. Marshal.
Thank you, Mayor, for this opportunity. Well, we've been working with New Orleans Police Department fast and furious for some time through our task force. This is a renewed effort and a new effort to focus our efforts on both the intelligence aspect and assisting with the arrest of the targets of this unit. And I think it's going to be exciting, and we're all in. We're in.
Thank you very much. Todd Cox, who's with FBI.
As everyone has mentioned previous to me, the FBI, we work with our local, state, and federal partners on a daily basis anyway. This new task force, as the mayor said, is going to be a laser focus on the most violent criminals out there, especially the ones that are committing homicides. The FBI, we're committed to this task force, and it shows our dedication to try to reduce violent crime in the city of New Orleans. Thank you.
Jimmy Fox with DEA.
For us here at DEA, this is the perfect storm, and we're extremely excited about being part of this partnership. One of the things that we've talked about constantly is the nexus or the connection or the conduit between drugs and violence and gangs. And so this gives us an opportunity to be a force multiplier to aid and to assist in this task force. So on behalf of the Drug Enforcement Administration, Mr. Mayor, we're pleased to be a part of this initiative.
Thank you very much. Constance Hester with ATF.
Hi, I'd like to say, to echo everything that everyone else has said, ATF is proud to be a part of this initiative as well. ATF is committed to getting the firearms off the street that are in the illegal hands of criminals. So being a part of this initiative is a great opportunity for us. We look forward to it. And again, thank you.
Thank you very much. Ron, say please.
Aside from the obvious, we thank the mayor, the chief, the DA, U.S. attorney for everything. There's good news and bad news. The bad news is Colonel Edmondson's not here because he's in New Jersey with our troopers. The good news is we'll get out earlier because he's not here.
That's the truth.
Is that a fact or what? I'm Ronnie Jones. I'm an assistant to him. I'm the liaison of the city for state police. Now, the partnerships you see behind me aren't anything new. We've all been working together in earnest over the last 3 or 4 years. But what is new is the manner and the groups of targeting here. State police is going to bring to the table the Fusion Center, where we'll put the intelligence together. We'll target the individuals. We'll target those characteristics that we can use to put assets to work, and our crime lab. I think the chief will support me that we've moved heaven and earth with that crime lab to support this city, and we'll continue to do that. We're glad to be a part of it. Thanks.
All right, thank you very much. Frank Palestina with Probation and Parole.
First of all, I'd like to thank the mayor and his staff for having Probation and Parole as part of this unit. We are 100% committed to reducing violence in the city of New Orleans. We have worked closely with all the agencies standing up here with me today, but I do want to also add that in addition to working with the gang unit, we will continue to work with offenders to rehabilitate, to provide services, to provide treatment when that's applicable. But we will do everything we can to make this gang unit successful, and we are hopeful for good results. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you very much. Just a couple of follow-ups. Again, this gang violence reduction strategy, group violence reduction strategy has 2 components. One of them is to encourage these young men who are engaged in bad behavior that are creating bad consequences to choose a new path, and we have opportunities for that. The other piece of it is if you choose wrongly, then you have a group of people here that, while they have historically worked together, are now actually going to work every day and live, eat, and breathe in the same room all day long and focus on one thing, which is 600 individuals that are part of 30 active groups in the city that are creating most of the death and destruction in the city of New Orleans. That's never, ever happened before. This is a unit of individuals who will be together all the time thinking about planning, strategy, execution, short-term, long-term, and we believe we'll be able to demonstrate to people who engage in bad behavior that there are consequences for your action. We hope that you choose well. In the event that you choose poorly, we will be there. And I want to thank everybody for it. We have buy-in, as you have seen, on the federal levels at the highest level, on the state level at the highest level, and on the local level. And as you can see, it's buy-in both vertically and horizontally. And we have great reason to believe and great hope that we're going to meet with some success. But of course, all of this would be unnecessary if people would choose well, because we cannot tolerate the level of violence on the streets of New Orleans. Too many deaths, too many lives lost, too much negative consequence from that activity, and we have got to change the culture of violence on the streets of New Orleans into a culture of peace, and this is going to be one step to try to make that happen. All right, with that, we'll be happy to answer any questions. Please direct them to the person who you want to answer it.
Obviously, any law enforcement official or you met, there is law enforcement community that says that New Orleans doesn't have a gang problem. We don't have gangs, we don't have organized groups that we can target. You all seem to be changing direction now. What provoked that change, and can you explain?
Well, first of all, I would say to you that I think that criminologists get stuck on words. As the drug trade and the professionalism of the drug trade changed, and you had gangs like Crips and Bloods, are the kind of things that you have in Mexico right now, that got to be known as a gang, as opposed to a group of individuals who are hanging out together, engaged in bad behavior. I think, without getting into an argument about semantics, it is untrue that we have gangs that are akin to what they have in Mexico. But it is absolutely true that we have groups of young men who are organized, and some people would call those gangs as well. I think it's clear, and the evidence reflects, that we have at least 39 groups of individuals that could be as small as 3 and as high as 15, who are loosely associated, that engage in criminal behavior. Some of them are related to each other, some of them are not, some of them are in neighborhoods, some of them operate around the city, that we have targeted, and 600 of them individuals have been identified as folks that we consider to be violent based on their past behavior and past practices, and that is who we're going to target. So you can call it gang reduction strategy or group reduction strategy. We're going after groups of people because we think they're acting in concert with each other, and they're causing problems, and that's who we're going to focus on.
Part of Mr. Kennedy's strategy, the part you mentioned about the other choice, when we talked about that other choice, it was like concrete examples of concrete opportunities from GED training and other kind of stuff he was offering to these young men in counseling sessions. What are you all doing?
That is another piece of this, and so I have another group of individuals that look very similar to this, except they're not law enforcement. They have expertise in training programs, they have expertise in education, they have expertise in jobs, they have expertise in reentry. And these young individuals, when we interact with them, if they ask us, we'll be guided along that path. We'll have personal meetings with them, counseling sessions with them. They will be, again, a priority for us as well. And so I think the choices are very real, and the consequences of both choices are immediate. But it's their choice. What we're telling you now is you've got to stop the shooting. There's another pathway that we can get to later, but you have to stop the shooting now. We're going to work on other stuff, and if you want to go down that pathway, we have a whole group of individuals that you can talk to that will help guide you the right way.
Mayor Landrieu, 39 groups in a city the size of New Orleans, that seems like a lot of groups. How did you identify that number specifically? What's your definition?
It was mostly, we brought in experts in from around the country that were criminologists that have done this work around. We analyzed a huge trove of data. We looked at the national statistics that reflect that there is a huge murder problem going on all around America in every major city, notwithstanding the relationship between per capita. If you get into certain neighborhoods in any city in America, for example, right now Chicago's got a huge bump, so does Philadelphia. In suburbs, in some areas of New York, the same thing. And then New Orleans, of course, has it. We were able to identify types of behavior, past criminal experience, what their relationship is to being in school or not in school, and folks that were on probation and parole and the consequences thereof. And through that analytical dive, we were able to, with other police intelligence, identify certain individuals that fit into those categories, and then in the neighborhoods in which most of the problems are occurring. And that's where we're going to focus our attention. The idea is, generally, across America, there are a small number of people that are committing a lot of the murders, and they all belong to separate and distinct groups. Some, are 3 or 4. Some is, 10. And they, it's not a specific science, but that's the kind of analysis that we have done and the kind of targets that we're engaging in. Well, we're doing a couple of different things. First of all, many of you covered the work that Spike Lee has done for us. As you know, his company donated a huge amount of production value, and we have created a media campaign called Flip Your Script, which we are using to communicate to folks throughout the city of New Orleans. So you see that on billboards, their radio spots, there are other ways through social media that we're trying to reach them. We also are doing it by reaching out through schools, and we're also doing engaging in other activity where we actually are able to speak to the young men directly, very respectfully, and let them know who we are, what we are, explaining what their choices are, both good and bad, and hoping that they respond. And that, again, is a strategy that is based on work that's been done around the country that's been successful in other places, and we hope, that it is here as well.
Have you gotten any responses? Has this started already? Have you gotten any responses from the individuals that...
It has started, and yes, we have gotten responses, and some young men have responded very positively to it, and we'll keep doing that over time. Yes.
DA Cannizzaro and Jim Letten, what are you going to do to make sure that you can, investigate the case enough that it, can get a long prison sentence? Are you going to try under the racketeering law? What can you do to kind of help the investigation, in the end get a long prison sentence?
Well, as we said, certainly we're going to work with the law enforcement officials to try to get the best case possible, to try to get the strongest evidence that we can. If we feel that the case does fit under the racketeering provision, then a defendant could be looking at a 50-year sentence under the racketeering statute. There are also some of the underlying charges that the defendant could be convicted of: murder, narcotic distribution, narcotic possession, gun possession, and depending on the person's background, we can use what we call the repeat offender statute, the habitual offender statute, to increase the potential sentences. But I think the important thing is, what is most important from our perspective is working with law enforcement at the very beginning of the case, at the inception of the case, because that makes our case even stronger when we go to court. And again, it's different from the things we've done in the past, whereas we would wait for maybe 30 or 60 days for a police report to come to us, and that would be our first involvement. So being involved with law enforcement at the case's inception, in our opinion, gives us a leg up on the violent offender.
Jim,
and if I can add, I think I agree with the DA entirely. First of all, the men and women who are involved in the investigative agencies, the police department, state police, the federal agencies, even probation and parole, all of these folks actually do the investigation and gather the evidence. Now, what happens is the prosecutors who are assigned to this task force actually get in real time this evidence as it's collected, digest the evidence, whether it's evidence that's derived from electronic surveillance or visual surveillance, or even use of subpoena power to bring in witnesses. We actually in real time develop that evidence. Now, the beauty of what we're doing is not necessarily that we'll use a racketeering statute, but as the DA is demonstrating he and his people can do, which is tremendous. It's something we like to do, and we've been doing it together more and more. And that is sometimes just using a basic conspiracy charge, not just to charge 1 or 2 people, but to charge 5, 6, 7, 8 simultaneously in a single indictment, to present to a single judge, a single jury, so that the system can get the big picture of the part that each person plays and take out entire groups at a time. That's how that's supposed to work.
Thank you.
So what you have to think about is that the way this unit is going to be structured and functioned at the ground level is to look for the in-depth investigations. There are people that we arrest that are on the street corner. We saw them, we created a case, and they went away. But what these investigations are intending to do is answer the long-term questions of what evidence is needed for 6 or 7 or 8 men who are involved in pressuring each other to commit crimes to go to prison for a very, very long time. So the police officers and the detectives, working in conjunction with all of our partners, approach those cases much differently than I saw somebody stand on a street corner, give a bottle of weed, a bag of weed, and make an arrest. Everything changes. These rules are completely different, and they're intended to be in-depth investigations that will provide all the evidence that the prosecutor needs to go for racketeering, long-term prison. You won't be back home for a very long time.
Thank you.
Can you talk about what kind of evidence that might be?
It's what the prosecutor said.
just to get a little spatial awareness on this. The way it used to happen was that there was a murder on a corner. The police got called out. They found a young man laying on the ground, face down, 2 bullet holes to the back of his head, and they would start an investigation about who committed that murder. And let's just say they, based on some information that they got, they were able to arrest somebody. Historically, the DA or the U.S. Attorney would prosecute that person one murder at a time. And that generally has been the way it's been done for a long time. What we're finding out now, because we all now are coordinated and we're talking to each other, is that these are not necessarily things that are happening randomly or coincident. They may be part of a much larger pattern, and the much larger pattern is part of behavior that's being engaged in by a certain group of individuals who know each other and who occupy a space. And if you go back and do a deep dive on that history, then the picture starts to come in full view. And as a consequence, the district attorney and the U.S. attorney have become very aggressive about prosecuting all of these cases at the same time. So the kind of evidence that you would need for one is similar to the others, except when everybody begins to discuss the work that they're doing, it's not just a murder charge anymore, it's a drug charge. It could be a whole bunch of other stuff, and then what you're doing is you're prosecuting an entire group of people for behavior that has taken place that is all criminal activity that may be linked to a murder or such. That is a much more comprehensive, thorough analysis that takes a lot more time, a lot more energy, and it takes absolute clear communication between and amongst the federal. So you will see instances, for example, the DA and the U.S. Attorney cooperating wonderfully on major cases. You see the U.S. Attorney has taken over the Telly-Hankton matter. That was really in conjunction with, you know, the discussions that have occurred through all of these things. It may be that the district attorney decides to do it on the state level. It's all part of the same team, but we have a bunch of different tools and a bunch of different ways to get to the result. Now, I want to be clear about this. Our preference is for people to stop shooting, not to put people in jail for the rest of their life. But one of the things that happened in this city is that when people engaged in bad behavior, there was no consequence. And so the level of deterrence went away. We're reinstituting that again. We're basically saying the rules of engagement have changed on the ground. And we want to show everybody, number one, we know each other, we like each other, we work together, and we have a lot of intelligence, and we are going to be there. And we're going to stay after it until we change the culture on the streets of the city.
To the last one.
The people being permanently assigned to this task force, where are you drawing people from with NOPD and New Orleans with the funding issues and everything? How are you all paying for this? Overtime? Is it straight time? How does that work?
First of all, every one of the organizations up here is contributing manpower and intelligence to this unit. And it's within the operating budgets that already exist. It's a redeployment of assets that are currently here. It's just a new way and a new focus on how to do their job. So you can see, if we were in a room, you would have somebody from DEA, somebody from ATF, somebody from the U.S. Marshals, somebody from the state police, somebody being guided by the DA's office or the U.S. Attorney, and Probation and Parole. And they, as a unit, will work together every day as though they belong to the same organization. And so it's, as I said, a cross-jurisdictional, multi-purpose task force that's going to be funded with assets. I also, as you know, have been to Washington many, many times to talk to the Department of Justice, and you see initiatives like this actually happening in Philadelphia and Chicago as well. So the federal government that used to spend a huge amount of money on working in local law enforcement that got their attention pulled away through Iraq and Afghanistan is beginning to refocus its attention on partnering with states and local governments in terms of fighting crime again. And, of course, we welcome their assistance and their involvement.
How many NOPD officers are going to be involved in this?
Chief, you want to answer that?
There'll be 6 officers who are reassigned permanently. There's a new leadership structure, and there's a new collaboration between the leadership all working for Kirk Boyalis, our deputy chief, to have a narrow laser focus on how these young men bump up across each other in any type of crime they may be involved in, and certainly if they're involved in any types of violence.
Are any of the other agencies going to have as many as 6?
Not one unit, no.
Not one unit, but collectively, yes. All right.